Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam and you are watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies, and today I want to tell you about 20 of my absolute favorite movies you can currently watch on Netflix. This list is going to have some hidden gems, it's going to have some action, it's going to have some horror, it's going to have a romantic comedy, believe it or not, but you are guaranteed to come away from this video with at least a few good movie picks that you can watch this week. Let's go ahead and jump into this list with my first pick. Blue Ruin. Now this is actually directed by Jeremy Saulnier, who's one of my favorite up-and-coming directors. His other movies are all on Netflix as well. They include Murder Party, Green Room, and Hold the Dark. Blue Ruin happens to be my absolute favorite. I love some of the others, but Blue Ruin is just top-notch thriller stuff. Really great at winding up the tension. Not a lot of dialogue in this one, which means the story has to tell you everything visually. If you can tell the story without having to explain everything, then you've got a really good movie on your hands. And if you like my recommendations, typically, even if you're new here and you've never watched this is one of my favorite movies on this list. I cannot recommend it enough. I promise this is the last time I'm going to say that this video. Perfect Bid is the only documentary on this list, and it's about a guy who basically cracked The Price is Right. He used spreadsheets and kept track of the prizes and was basically able to know almost the exact amount of a lot of the prizes. And the reason I like this one and I have it on here is documentaries tend to be fairly heavy-handed. They deal with fairly heavy subject matter, and with today's news media being so just, I don't know, mind-numbing and toxic, this is a nice little break. Like, it was kind of fun for me to watch a documentary that was pretty lighthearted, and it's fairly well put together as well, so it's one of the better documentaries on there right now, especially for just turning your brain off and having a little fun.
Hey, fool. Hey, fool. Sucker. You foolish sucker. Bit of what? Hello, is Eric there, please?
Another one that is a lot of fun is Eagle vs. Shark. This is my one romantic comedy pick, and I do not talk about romantic comedies very often on this channel. Most of you know that by now, and it's because they're so often the same story over and over again. It's almost the same movie with different actors. Eagle vs. Shark feels different. It stars Jermaine Clement, who you may know from Flight of the Conchords and a whole host of other things. He's a very successful actor now, and it's a very heartfelt love story between two very, very awkward people. And there's this whole story about this guy trying to kind of get back at a bully that used to bully him when he was a kid. If you liked Flight of the Conchords or What We Do in the Shadows, this movie's not as funny. It's not written to really be as much of a comedy with like a laugh a minute, but it's got this similar spirit about it, and I really enjoyed it. Now, for something completely different, Black Sea stars Jude Law, Ben Mendelsohn as contractors that are given a job of going and finding this Nazi sub that's supposedly loaded with gold, and they have to get there by submarine. So it's a submarine crew, it's a submarine movie, you're on a sub for most of the movie, and it's also basically a heist movie. I love those two elements. I love heist movies, I love submarine movies, and this, Black Sea, did a really great job of capturing the best of both worlds. Another really great pick on the list. It's a hidden gem because nobody's talking about it, but you heard about it here on Flick Connection. If you want to watch a good heist thriller, Black Sea is a great way to go.
If I'd grown up on a farm and was retarded, Bruges might impress me, but I didn't, so it doesn't.
Now, for something completely on the far other end of the spectrum from Eagle vs. Shark, In Bruges. It stars Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, and it's directed by Martin McDonagh, who did 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, which got a ton of praise, and it is a good movie, but In Bruges is a better movie, and this is the epitome of dark comedy. It's very dark. There's a lot of stuff in this movie that is not PC today.
What exactly are you trying to say?
What exactly am I trying to say? These are a bunch of fucking elephants. A lot of midgets tend to kill themselves.
You can't sell horse tranquilizers to a midget. Back off, shorty. You don't know karate. Ah!
You fucking retract that bit about my cunt fucking kid.
And it's not that old of a movie. That's how far things have changed just in the last few years. But it's also got a really great performance from Colin Farrell. I think one of his best. Colin Farrell's character is just drenched in misery, and it's pretty hilarious if you allow yourself to laugh at it. You're not going to want to if it's the first time you're seeing this movie, because the humor goes so far against what your body wants to laugh at. But if you go into it with the right mindset, I think you'll have a lot of fun with this one. All right, my first, and I think only one of two foreign films on this list, is Animal World. Now, I've recommended this maybe just once before, and in this one is super epic, and it is about a rock, paper, scissors game, a life and death rock, paper, scissors game. It's well worth the subtitles, and I'll tell you, normally I kind of recommend subtitle movies where I'll tell you if there's not a lot of reading that you have to do. This one you have to do so much that I had to pause it multiple times just to keep up, because they explain all the logic that goes into this rock, paper, scissors game, and there's way more logic than you would think, and I had to pause it just to read how much they were explaining. It's still worth the effort. This was such a cool movie. Again, this is life and death. This is a battle royale with these cards that have rock, papers, and scissors on them. Michael Douglas makes an appearance. There's a clown that's just cutting aliens in half, all kinds of crazy stuff. And at the core of it, a story that works really, really well. And the movie is just stunningly beautiful.
Plus, I'll take you out to pizza at the round table. Pizza, my favorite pizzeria in Auckland. But bring the change, cause you can't wear your silk robin.
Now, for a comedy pick that's technically not a movie, but I don't know where else, I haven't known where else to recommend this, but the Bash Brothers Experience is created by The Lonely Island, which is Andy Samberg and the other two guys, whatever their names are. But they are known for a lot of hits, like I'm on a Boat.
I got my swim trucks and my flippin' floppies. I'm flipping burgers, you at Kinko straight flipping cabbage.
And this is a collection of music videos as if the Bash Brothers, Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire, put out a rap album in the late 80s. It's hilarious. Like, if you like some of their songs, this is just a really fun watch. It lasts for about an hour. And I'll just tell you, my personal favorite is Oakland Nights, which just has a really great bit about silk robes and kimonos. It's one of my favorite things on Netflix right now. One of my favorite movies to have come out just in the past 2 years is Hell or High Water. This is a great heist movie that takes place in Texas, starring Chris Pine and Ben Foster. One of my favorite actors, Jeff Bridges, is in it as well. He's really great in it. And this is directed by the same guy who did Outlaw King, but it's a much better film in my opinion. It's a really great modern Western. It takes place in modern day West Texas, a couple of brothers knocking off banks. There's multiple bank heists in the movie. Jeff Bridges is an agent that's hunting them down. It's really well put together. It's entertaining, it's gripping, there's some action in it, and ultimately, my big criteria for a good movie is just the story is really, really well told. One of my favorite picks off of this list as well. If that's not enough western-y kind of stuff for you, Hatfields and McCoys is actually a mini-series. I think it's 3 parts that are about an hour and a half long each, and it stars Bill Paxton and Kevin Costner as the heads of the Hatfields and McCoys family, 2 notorious families that have feuded in the South basically forever. And this is a really good telling of the story. It's really well shot. It's movie quality. It's excellent. It came out on TV, I want to say like A&E or something, just within the last 10 years, but it's just sort of hiding on Netflix because I think the algorithm doesn't know where to place it, which is why I'm here to tell you about it. If you love that genre, if you want to watch kind of a Kevin Costner-y Western thing, this is a great one that far too many people have seen. Another, just one of the best movies on Netflix right now that thankfully more people have discovered is The Invitation. Now this one is about a guy who goes to a dinner party at his ex-wife's house, and that's probably not a good idea to begin with, but to add some craziness to the mix, everyone's acting really odd, very culty, they're building up to something, and this movie kept me guessing the entire time. I was just battling back and forth, like, is there something sinister going on? Is it in his head? Back and forth, and all I'll say, without spoiling anything, is let the movie take you on that ride, and just know that ultimately, the juice was worth the squeeze. If you like this type of content and you want regular movie recommendations on a regular basis, click the subscribe button and be sure that little bell icon is clicked. I put up a couple of videos a week just in an effort to make sure that you never run out of good movies to watch.
I mean, I fucking hate guns.
Although that one is really pretty, don't like that second one.
Now, Layer Cake is a gangster flick from the UK. It's really kind of the beginning of Daniel Craig's leading man career. Before this, he was just sort of a secondary character in some big movies, but this is before he was James Bond, and this is directed by Matthew Vaughn, who, this is his first feature film, but he went on to direct movies like Stardust, Kick-Ass, X-Men First Class. I really enjoy and find all of his movies entertaining. This one happens to be his most adult and grittiest movie. Now, prior to this movie, it's worth noting that he was the producer for Guy Ritchie's gangster films. Films like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch. They parted ways, and the thing I love about Layer Cake, as much as I love those other movies, is you get to see Matthew Vaughn's vision of a UK gangster film, and it's a very different vision. It's very polished, it's very swanky, it's kind of got a James Bond vibe to it. I have no doubt that Daniel Craig landed the James Bond gig as a direct result of this movie. If you've never seen it, I recommend it. I was wrong. I've got 2 more foreign films on this list, one of them being The Legend of Drunken Master. This is my new favorite Jackie Chan movie. I've been a fan of Jackie Chan for a long time. His work is incredible. Not only does he do his own stunts, like Tom Cruise does his own stunts and that's incredible, but Jackie Chan does insanely athletic stunts that require a lot of him, and a lot of stunts that are strung together in one shot, in one take, and Legend of Drunken Master might be his best. Quentin Tarantino definitely drew major inspiration for Kill Bill from this movie. There's incredible fight sequences, it's funny at times, and again, just the stunt work is so amazing. You could watch this one and not read the subtitles and be thoroughly entertained. Monster House is an animated movie that I think got overlooked a little bit because Pixar just steals the thunder anytime something like this comes out. But this one's got a really great look to it, and especially if you were really into Stranger Things any season, Monster House is worth watching even if you're not watching it with kids. In fact, it's a little too scary for really little kids, but I think adults could watch this and be thoroughly entertained. It's got nostalgia for days, it is spooky, it's got an incredible look to it, and ultimately a really good story about this haunted house that is kind of alive, and visually it all comes out really great on screen. The character designs are great. I just mentioned this one because I like to throw in something for families that's family friendly occasionally. Again, this is one that you could watch as an adult and be perfectly happy with. Now, Spectral is a Netflix original sci-fi film. It's one of the first big budget sci-fi movies that they released, and it got very little love, just in the fact that people didn't watch it. And it is pretty cool. Had I paid to go see this in the theater, I don't think I would have been disappointed, but it kind of looks like Black Hawk Down with supernatural elements. Like, if you're not into that idea, then you're probably not gonna be into this movie, but if that flips something in your brain, you should check this one out. It's got incredible visuals, it's got a decent story, and it's got some really good action and some good sci-fi, modern warfare kind of stuff. It's a pretty badass little movie. I wish it had been a little bit harder. Like, I wish it had really been like more maturely rated, and I think it would have been, people would have been talking about it all over the place, but because those corners are rounded off, it's a little bit forgettable, but still, if you never bothered to watch it, it's a great Netflix original. And if that one didn't do it for you, but you are a sci-fi fan, Otherlife is from Australia and is a really cool movie for people that like Black Mirror. This one's about this like liquid that you put in your eyes that allows you to experience virtual reality, but everything feels very real, and you're in an environment for a small amount of time, but you could be somewhere for a year and it could only be 15 minutes in real time. And then naturally with this epic technology advancement, things do not go well for the main characters. It's that type of story in the sense that it's kind of like Black Mirror. I thought this one was great. I just watched it on a whim a couple of months ago and it took me by surprise. I've recommended it a few times on the channel. Now, you gotta be quick. You gotta be quick with this one because Wind River is leaving August 28th. Now, this is written and directed by Taylor Sheridan, who also wrote Hell or High Water, and he also wrote Sicario. He's a very good thriller writer, and he happens to be a pretty damn good director too. This one stars Jeremy Renner, who's investigating the possible homicide of a young girl, and they're out in the snow in Wyoming, and they're on and next to Native American reservations, and so they're having to deal with sort of cultural differences. And this one does deal with some really heavy subject matter, but it's so well done. It's handled very respectfully, and it's a really, really good movie. In fact, I've recommended it a few times over the past 2 years. It's been on Netflix that long. If you haven't watched it, get on it. But every single comment about this movie I've ever read on this channel has been positive, almost overwhelmingly positive. So it too is one of the top picks off of this list. What Happened to Monday is another Netflix original sci-fi movie that I feel like didn't get much love. It stars Noomi Rapace as 7 different characters. It takes place in a future where the world is overpopulated, and sort of like the one-child policy, it goes for the whole world. And if you have more than one, not only are you punished, but the additional children, God forbid there's more than one additional one, they are cryo-frozen for a future when we've solved sort of the food and overpopulation crisis. The movie does a good job of setting everything up, and then ultimately what you get out of it is this really cool story about these 7 septuplet sisters who have to live as one person. And they're each named after a day of the week, and they can only go out on that day of the week. But then what happens when one of them does not come home one night? Another one that will definitely appeal to fans of Black Mirror. If you passed on it, didn't really care too much to see it, I do recommend it. It's got its flaws, which is why it's not just a gem, but it's damn close.
What you're saying is we drill down through the floor of the apartment.
That's right.
Okay, you know the drill.
And then speaking of gems, so I recently watched every single, it still hurts my brain, every single Nicolas Cage movie currently on Netflix. There's a link to that video in the description. I highly recommend checking it out because I at least evaluate some of the worst movies he's ever done. So there's an entertainment value there. And then you get a couple of good recommendations in that video as well. But The Trust was one of the biggest surprises when I was on that binge watch. It's thrown into the mix of some movies he's made lately. They were almost all terrible, but The Trust was really great. Him and Elijah Wood play cops in Las Vegas that decide to pull off a heist from a stash house. Their characters are both really odd. The movie's funny at times, but it's not a comedy. It's got some really tense scenes. It's really well written. I enjoyed it all around. I thought it was a really great experience, and it was cool to see the two of them together. I would watch a movie with the two of them together any day of the week, but this is another top pick off of this list, mainly because it's just such a surprise. I'd be doing myself a disservice if I didn't mention one of the bigger movies on Netflix right now, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I know it didn't really fit with this list because these are more like hidden gems and things like that, but this movie was so good. It's so fun and entertaining and fresh in a time when not just Marvel, but superhero movies just feel very repetitive. Like I feel like we're seeing the same thing over and over again. And Spider-Verse felt very different for a couple of reasons. One, the animation style is really beautiful, and I love that we can have different animation styles. Everything doesn't have to look like Pixar. Those movies are great, but it'd be nice to see some other style occasionally in animation. Spider-Verse delivers that. There's a whole host of characters, including Nicolas Cage voicing one of them, and it's got just stunning visuals, action, and a good story that doesn't feel like I'm watching the same thing over again. So if you've gone a little stale on the superhero stuff and you just passed on this one because you thought it was just another Spider-Man movie, give it 10 minutes. If you're not digging it, bail out, but I think most of you are gonna love this one. I got 2 picks left. One of them is called Stephanie, and this is not quite, I guess you could call it a horror movie, but it's about a little girl. She's alone, there's no neighbors, there's no parents. She's having to fend for herself, which is upsetting to begin with, but then you start to learn there's been this apocalyptic event. There's maybe creatures or monsters or aliens. You're not really sure what's going on. This one had a lot in common with Bird Box, and as much as everybody loved Bird Box, I thought Stephanie was a much better take on that type of story. So if you loved Bird Box, I would do yourself a favor and check out Stephanie. And then finally, at the end of this list, purposely at the end of this list, because it is the most loved and appreciated movie I've ever talked about on this channel, Train to Busan is the last foreign flick. It's well worth it. It's from South Korea. It's about a father and daughter on a train, but it's amidst a zombie outbreak, and it's one of the better zombie outbreak movies to have come out in a long time. People that are tired of zombie movies tell me that they love this one. People that never watch foreign films tell me how much they love this one. I've watched this one with family, friends. Everybody I know that has seen this has loved and really adored and appreciated this movie. If you've never seen it, make it the first one you watch off of this list. If you never watch movies with subtitles, make this the first one that you watch, or make this the one that kind of brings you back into the fold. You get to see stories you wouldn't see otherwise, but I cannot recommend, there I go, saying it again, I cannot recommend Train to Busan enough. If you'd like to support the channel, you can become a Patreon supporter like one of these fine people. They're doing a great job of literally keeping these lights on, as well as everything else involved with making the show. Believe it or not, I make this show, some of you might believe it, but I make this show 100% by myself. Filming, writing, researching, editing, posting, designing thumbnails, all of it. So the extra help from Patreon really does allow me to do that much work, and it is a lot more work than you would expect. But I'll keep making them as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this very long episode, and you will see me on the next shorter episode.